Shalom Lekulam, and welcome to lesson number 27 on the book of Zohar. We are in the prologue, the beginning of the book of Zohar. We are still studying the section called the donkey driver. This section is a very important section because it has a lot of mysteries in it, a lot of revelations as well. And it's basically a kind of like in-depth explanation of what the book of Zohar is all about when we continue reading all the rest of the book as it is divided by the Torah portions, the weekly portions of the Torah. We're going to start today with the donkey driver, paragraph 104. This is this paragraph or number, the numbers of these paragraphs are based on the Baal Hasulam's commentary on the Zohar. And this is how it was divided in this case. Before we start study, let's, as always, we're always going to start with our meditation to make sure that we have the proper connection, the proper connection with the light and the proper intention in order to study the Zohar and reveal this light to the world. Okay, so as always, we're gonna scan these letters, this name of God that's being filled with other names of God, and we're gonna scan from your right to the left. You don't need to know the meaning of these words. Just all you have to do is scan it, because they will not make sense. Even if you read it, they have no real meaning physically, but spiritually they are like keys that open certain kinds of spiritual gates of light in order for us to study the Zohar. So I'm gonna give you a few seconds to scan, and then we're gonna continue with the prayer before the study of the Zohar. Ruler of the universe, a master of all masters, the Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor, which is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all our sins, and that they should not bring separation between you and us. And may be your will before you, our God, and the God of our fathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you. And may you listen to our utterances and open our closed hearts to the hidden studies of your Torah. And may your study be pleasant before you, before your place of honor, as the aroma of sweet incense. And may you emanate to us light from the source of our soul to all of our being, and may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you reveal your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit enlighten our eyes in our learning, as it is stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so that I will see wonders from your Torah. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. May the utterances of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. So we're going to start with paragraph or verse 104 in the book of Zohar, in the section the donkey driver. This is the prologue section, the donkey driver, paragraph 104. So it says, even though he did not join them and was not included in the count, David set him over his guard, because he was never separated from the tablet of his heart, because they are inseparable. David gave his heart to Moshe, but he did not give his heart to David, because by the hymns and praises, together with the kindness of the moon shows for the sun, she draws him to the sun to reside with her. This is what the verse, and David set him over his guards, mean. So let's have a little recap of where we finished in our last lesson. In the last lesson, we were talking about um, how Chesed, Binah, and Dat are called 30, right? And how each of these Sefirot, which are called Chabad, consist of 10. So that's why there are 30, because it's three tree of life, that are composed of 10 Sefirot each. So this is why they're called 30. And the light shines in all the 6,000 years. And it says that the soul of Benayahu, which is one of the characters that we have been reading about, and then we're going to continue talking about all these names and what they mean and continue to mean for us as we study the Zohar. This soul of Benayahu appears out of this great coupling or union of Attic, which accumulates all these couplings during the 6,000 years. And this is why it is called Rav Pa'alim, performing many actions, and Mekafsir, which means gathering all into 1 degree or 1 parsuf. And this is what is called, Benayahu ben Yehodaya, which is another character that we met in the previous lesson, okay? And in our previous lesson also we saw, or we knew the reason why Moshe didn't enter the Holy Land, and the meaning of the mystery of the staff, which we're not going to go back to it, but it has to do with what we're going to be talking now, and the mystery or the correction or the ascension of the worlds, especially talking from Bon ascending to Sag and Sag to Ma. Okay, so this is what we're going to be talking here. So it says the light, or basically, the soul receives this light from the supernal 30, which is Chabad. And this light descends to the soul and consists of couplings that have happened through these 6,000 years. And all these coupling gather into one. And after they gather into one, it says there's a screen, or the masach, the screen disappears in the zone. So it's Seramping and Nukhwa. Seramping and Nukhwa basically is the lower 7. Chabad is the upper 3. And the disappearance of the screen in zone then makes a kind of like another masach, but this time in sach, disappear as well. And the soul cannot come to raise the Ma'anuchbin, this lower water, and receive from there, and on. Then here, in item 104 says that David, remember we call about this Mekafsiel, this name and everything, it's basically Malchut, right? Now, we're gonna know the mystery of David. David's not only a king, a physical person that came to this world and was the ruler of the nation of Israel. It's also parsuf. It's an energy. It's kind of like a system that also we need to attain. And this system called David, or this parsuf called David, is basically Malchut. And Malchut comes from the word Melech. Melech in Hebrew, translated from the Hebrew, means king in English. So David Hamelech, David the king, has the properties of this Malchut, of this kingdom. And this is the four leg that supports the first three that we talk about, which is Chabad, also known in Kabbalah as Gar, okay, which is Gimer Rishonim. And it says that even though he cannot be together, cannot connect together with these first 30, these 30, Sefirot, which is Chabad, he clings to the properties of these 30 Sefirot and never detaches from them. So it's Malchut and Zerampin clinging to them. How is this done? This is done because Malchut entire perfection is revealed in David, right? Because this great Sivuk of Atik that destroys all these impure forces, the forces of Tumah, in the Parsuf Bon. Parsuf Bon is the Parsuf Malchut of the Malchut of Ein Sof. It says, that he destroys evil forever. And this is why David decided to never part from the straight path again and from the perfection of that path. But in the other hand, what we're going to see is that these other parsuf that we've been studying, called Benanyahu ben Yehodaya, did not pay attention to David. And David is the fourth leg, it's the fourth support of this Gimer Rishonim, this God, this Chabad that we just mentioned before, the 30, right? And because he did not pay attention to this Sefirot or this Parsuf called David, he's unable to receive from these first three. And because he cannot receive from David, he cannot pay attention to him. And this is, Benayahu ben Yehodaya, who cannot receive from David. And if you want to know who that person is, or what is this parsuf actually represents, you gotta go to 2 to 3 lessons before this one, and there it is explained. With the help of the raising of man, the Ma'inuk being the feminine waters of Malchut, that are called stormy wind or Sahara, which are elevated to that level called Seramping, which is called heaven, as a result of the songs and hymns and praises and the mercy, these Malchut then receive the light of Benayahu ben Yehodaya's soul, which is absolute perfection, and merge with this light for eternity. Okay? And I know it sounds kind of like dark and not clear and everything, but let's continue. Let's go to item number 105. So in this way, it can become more clear what the Zohar is trying to tell us here. So it says that Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Abba fell down on their faces in front of the donkey driver, and as they fell, he disappeared. Then they rose and looked all around but could not see him. So they sat down, began to weep, and could not speak to each other. After a while, Rabbi Abba said, "This must be related to what we have learned. When righteous people go on a journey and occupy themselves in the study of the Torah, they are visited by righteous soul from that other world, who reveals to them the new explanations of the Torah. So this surely must be the reason why Rav Hamnuna Saba came to us from that world." This is the donkey driver, right? to reveal these teachings to us, and before we were able to recognize who he was, he went off and disappeared. They stood up and tried to lead their donkeys on, but the donkeys did not move. Again, they tried to lead them on, but they did not move. Fear struck them both, and they left the donkeys and in their place. And even now, the site is called a place of the donkeys. As we as we read this, we need to keep in mind that when we talk about donkeys, we're not talking about the animal itself. We're talking about the symbolism behind it. Let's put it that way. The symbolism behind the donkey. The donkey represents matter, So this is the word for donkey right here, hamori. So a donkey represents matter. It's related to the word matter also in Hebrew, okay? And when he's talking about that, he's talking about the ego. He's talking about this heart of stone that we have in ourselves, okay? So make sure you keep that in mind when we're reading this, because the donkey driver is that person that has this control over the donkeys, right? And the Baal HaSulam explained that because Rabbi Elias and Rabbi Abba could not basically bear such a powerful light, that this light that was revealed to them, and this light that was revealing to them the secrets, they fell. When he says that they fell, means that they became in a state of katnut. And then we say, and as they fell, he disappeared, meaning the light disappeared, and then in order to illuminate these other vessels of reception, they need to rise, they need to get up, right? Then they rose and looked all around but could not see him. What does that mean? They are now in a state of Gadlut. Gadlut is a state of greatness. For it was so unbearable, this light, that they, have to go in a state of Gadlut in order not to receive egoistically, and then in Gadlut, but this light wasn't there basically in the same way. When they were able to attain from such that great degree, this light disappeared at once and did not reappear, and they couldn't attain it anymore. And this is why they wept. Weeping or crying means that they went into a state of smallness, out of this great grief that they have lost such exalted attainment, and they could not speak. Meaning, when they cannot speak, means that they cannot, or they don't have the proper vessels to still contain this light in them, because they felt the pain of their loss. This made them realize that it was the degree of Rabbi Hamnuna Saba himself, and not lower. That they have made the mistake, they had the mistake of thinking that it was a lower force, a lower light, other than the soul of Rabbi Hamnuna Saba. The forces that they receive from that soul of Rabbi Hamnuna Saba are called donkeys, in which they can raise man, they can raise these prayers, they can raise these requests and attain these higher degrees of Haya and Yehida. So, even though the word donkey, the word donkey is related to matter and all that, the donkeys, or let's put it this way, that's the soul is a spiritual force that is created by the light. And then the donkey acts like this force that will pull or push the soul to overcome egoistic desires and move from one spiritual level to another spiritual level, all the way to a higher degree. And then when they're raising man, meaning that they're doing these prayers and requests in order to attain more light, um, means that they feel that there's a lack, that they, even though they reach this level, probably a level that Rabbi Hamnuna Saba took them, they still see that there's a need to to attain more light, that there's still some lack in them, that the work is not done yet. And this is why it is called the work of the righteous soul, because this work helps a man lift up into his egoism, which is a donkey, and taking the lead, meaning pulling the donkey in order to illuminate or give strength for him to be in the path of the righteous. When this work has been completed, then that soul, it disappears. The soul that we call, Rabbi Hamnuna Saba, right? Now, even though Rabbi Elas and Rabbi Abba, which represent, our desires, or desires to attain spirituality, even though we want, let's say that we are identifying with these two rabbis, Rabbi Elas and Rabbi Abba, that this is our soul, even though our soul would like to continue ascending and riding these donkeys, meaning that they wish to ask for more light and more light and go to a different level or attain that light that supposedly they sense, or they had the sensation that they lost. It is because of this connection, or this experience that they have with this soul that came to reveal the light, and this soul left basically like a memory, a sensation in them, that when this light disappears, or in this case in us, when this light disappears in us, we are left with an emptiness. We're left with this desire that we need to somehow connect again. And it doesn't mean that we disconnected. In reality, is that this soul that came raised us up to a higher degree, and for us, the sensation in our vessel is like this light disappeared, like we didn't attain any degree at all, because the previous degree basically disappeared, as we learned in a previous lesson. Every time we attain another degree, it's like the previous degree disappears, so we feel that we need to continue ascending because the work is never done. And this is how we need to see it. However, in this case, it says, that Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Eleazar could no longer receive the strength to raise the Ma'anuchbin, to raise this request for light, right? And this is why they had this fear, and they left their donkeys in a place, the place called the place of the donkeys. And they could not use them anymore. Remember, the donkeys are these desires, egoistic desires, this egoism that we're supposed to use in order to advance, right? So let's continue to verse number 106. Rabbi Eliezer said, "Oh, how great is your goodness, which you have laid upon for those who fear you. How great is the heavenly abundance of the Holy One, blessed be He. You shall bestow on human beings to those things fearing divine and righteous men who learn the Torah as they arrive at the word come. It is not only written your goodness, but also how great is your goodness. And who is He? This refers to the memory of your goodness, which is the pleasure of life that is drawn from the world to come down to the life of the worlds. This is called the memory of your goodness, which is certainly the great goodness towards the house of Israel. The word or the words called great is your goodness or great goodness. This means to a state called Gadlut, which is a state of greatness in which all the vessels are filled with the light. It's the attainment of the light of the first three, the 30, right? The 30 vessels that are above Zon, which is the Rampian Nupa. And it says, that the basis or the importance of a parsuf, it's the six or the vacuum, which is the lower parsuf, the lower vessels, okay, and the amount of light necessary for existence received from this coupling in Ava Ve'ima. Ava Ve'ima is Chokmah and Bina. Remember, Chokmah and Bina, when they unite, there's that, and that creates Chabad, which creates the 30, right? And it says, who make this Sivuk, and they emit this Or Hasidim that comes down and sustain all the worlds below. All the extra light that are necessary for any existence is called Gar Rishonim, or Chokmah, the 30 vessels that are above, the additional, delectable, and they're called also the great light. These are Chokmah, called Gar, the first three, comes from Bina and is called the world to come, the Olam Haba. This light of Chokmah is clothed in Or Hasidim, and this Or Hasidim comes from the coupling of the union of the Sephirah Yesod, which is called Chaim Chai Olamim, or life of the worlds, and from there descends to the righteous who fears to sin, those people that don't want to sin. The Sivuk of Ava Ve'ima, of Chokmah and Bina, when they are in this degree of Bina, they give Or Hasidim to Serampin. For Serampin then will sustain all the words below through this Sivuk done between Ava Ve'ima. When Ava Ve'ima ascend to Arikampin, they create new souls by this coupling. This coupling is a constant coupling and emits life of Chokmah or Chokmah that are called new souls. Okay, so this is an ascension of the world that we have mentioned before in other lessons. So it's basically you have Atik in Tzimtzum Bet, Arin Camping, Ava Ve'ima, Seramping. Just think, for example, in this in this way, this is how the original place is. Just imagine that this move up, just like we have it here, which Asiya moved to the Yesirah to the Briah, and then Briah is in what we call the Asilut. But in this case, we have Serampin in Ava Ve'ima, Ava in Arin Camping in Atik, and Atik, a higher degree, which is Adan Kadmon, basically. So let's go to verse 107. Ma is Hebrew for how. How great is your goodness should be further explained. In these words, the secret of wisdom is engraved. It is a place where all the secrets are included, because the word how or ma means according to what we have learned. Great refers to a great and strong tree, which is Serampin, because there is another tree which is smaller than this one, referring to Malchut. This one, Serampin, is referred to as great and rises up to the highest of the heaven. So the word for great, right, is, in case you're wondering, it's called Rav. Okay, Rav, Resh Bet. Okay, and then Ma, for Ma, it's gonna be Mem Hey, which you're gonna see it here, in case you want some reference of what this Ma means or look like in Hebrew. So in addition to this attainment of this light of the 30 that are above zone, there's an inner part of this supernal wisdom and the secrets that are in there. And these secrets become revealed in the part or because of coupling of Attic at the completion of the 6,000 years of correction. Ma designates this lower olam, this lower world of Malchut. The great and strong tree, which is Serampin, in a state of ascent to Parsuf Av, meaning that from, let me get the graph so it can make more sense. So basically, if you have Serampin moving to this level, the words ascending, right? These are the 6,000 years of correction. Then you have, as it says here, Serampin in a state of ascending to Ab, which is Abba Behima right here. But specifically to Ab, meaning, to the male aspect, which is Chokmah. As in these days, it will receive this or Chokmah, the life of Chokmah. And Chokmah means also strength, reason, and strength, But this strength of the light of Chokmah lies in the fact that it will only allow one to go against reason in defiance of common sense, in something that is called, and is, make sure you keep note of this, something called faith above reason. When Serampin is in that level, he is simply called a tree, Etz, right? Because he has no or Chokmah, only has, these lower lights of Vak, right? Which is called Or Hasidim. And Malchut is also called a tree and grows together with Serampin. And when Serampin ascends to Abba, to the highest level, to the supernal firmament of Attic. Okay? So Serampin ascends to Abba, and then Abba ascends to Arin Camping, and then Arin Camping to Attic. So this is how the words, ascend. And this is something, that the ascensions of the words is something that is very interesting because, for example, when there's an ascension of the word, it's like we are seeing, like for example, you celebrate Shabbat. In Shabbat, we have the Eve of Shabbat, and then we have the Shabbat itself. During that time, we do certain rituals and certain prayers, and it's because we are trying to connect to this light of these worlds. And as these worlds are ascending, we want our soul to ascend with this world. So what you see here is basically our world is in a state like right here with Adam Harishon is in a place of the klipot, in the place of these husks that are holding the light. And then as Shabbat comes, it's like we have a taste of the world to come. The world to come is when all the worlds are ascended to a place of perfection where Adam Harishon, which is our soul, used to live, which is the Garden of Eden. So we have a taste of the Garden of Eden. So make sure you keep that in mind when it comes to the ascension of the worlds that we're talking here. It's kind of complicated when in reality it has to do with the mystery of something that happened for the creation of the world and something that happened also, the creation of our soul. Because Adam Harishon was created on the sixth day, but then before Shabbat came, this soul broke into pieces because of what we call the sin, right? Because of the interaction of light with the vessels of egoisms that were not ready to receive it. And now we have Shabbat, and Shabbat is our opportunity to restore that, to have a taste of that, so we can attain at least, a taste of that light and live. And that's what it is said that in Shabbat we receive an extra soul. And it's because we're ascending, so we receive an extra light that day that we don't have, okay? So when we have here Seramping and this state of ascents to the Parsuf Av, receiving only their Chokmah. Their Chokmah is a strength, but this strength, it has to be, like I said, against the reason. It's faith above reason. Then when Seramping is in his place, he simply called a tree. So when Seramping is right here, in his place, he simply called a tree. He's not receiving any Chokmah. He only is receiving, the necessary light to survive, right? To put it in that, which is called Hasidim. Maho is also called a tree and grows together with Seramping because they're together. Nukva and Seramping are basically, complementary. Parsuf, it's a whole Parsuf when they're together. And this is why Mahu is also called a tree and grows together with Seramping. Seramping ascends to Abba, Malchut, or the Nukva also ascends to Abba. Let's go to verse 108. 108. Your goodness is the light that was created on the first day of the act of creation, which you have laid out for those who fear you. That is, he hid it for the righteous in the world to come, which you have performed. Alludes to the upper garden of Eden, as it is written, in the place Hashem, which you have made for yourself to dwell in. This is what the words which you have performed for those who trust you. Okay? So, the light that was created in the first day of creation is the light which Adam saw of, or the light that allowed Adam to see from one end of the world to another end of the world. The world light is used 5 times in the Torah's description of this first day of creation. And the reason it's used 5 times is alluding to the 5 Parsufim, right? So we have Malchut and Seramping, that's 2, right? And then we have Abba Ve'ima, that's 4, and Arikamping, which is 5. But basically what you have is Keter, which is 1. Let me see if I can. So you have Keter, which is 1. You have Abba, which is 2. Ima, 3. Seramping, 4. And Nukva, which is 5. So that's what you're going to have, in the book of Genesis when it mentioned the light 5 times. It's alluding to this secret of the light that is mentioned there. And that went ahead 7. Okay. So this light, right? It's mentioned 5 times in the description of the book of Genesis, right? 5 times. The light is intended only for the righteous, and it's intended not only for the righteous, but it's intended for the righteous in the world to come, because it is concealed in Yesod the Abba and in Yesod the Ima, which both of them are called together, or when both of them are called righteousness and justice, You know, basically have here a definition that these two Sefirot are the ones that are gonna mark the difference between the right and the left, right? The Hebrew word for justice is tzedek, and for righteous or just is tzadik, and they all have, these two words have the same root. This name, tzadik, is given to a person who attains the Creator's person that accepts, the Creator's will, and sees that the Creator is in all his actions is just and does good. He justifies all the Creator's actions, and because of this, the person is called tzadik, righteous. The other meaning of the word tzadik or righteous refers to the beliefs of a man that the Creator is also a tzadik, a righteous force. Because in spirituality, we need to assume that the name of that degree, or we need to basically connect to that name that one has attained. So if you attain that name, Sadiq is a name of God as well. So if you attain that name of God, Sadiq, you assume the qualities of that name. Okay? If you attain to that Creator, to that level of which you see that the Creator is a Sadiq, is righteous, by receiving this revelation from that degree in which a person ascends, in which you ascend, then this person is going to be called according to that degree. What does this mean? To put it simple, let's say if you are a son or a daughter, and that, meaning the name son and daughter, of course means that you have a mother and a father. But until you attain that level, till you have that experience of having a son and a daughter, you have not attained that level of mother or father. So once you attain that level, once you become basically a father and a mother, then you can be called father and mother by those below you, which are going to be your children, right? This is basically how you need to see it, okay? This is how you need to see it. So it's the lower degree going to a higher degree, and for example, in this case, let's say Malchut ascends to Bina. Malchut is a desire to receive. Bina is desire to bestow. But if Malchut ascends to that level of desire to bestow, Malchut will be called Bina. Okay? So this is another way to see it when it comes to Kabbalah nomenclature. Or Chokmah can be received only in what we call precious garments, called righteousness and justice, which is Chokmah and Bina. That means only with these intentions. What this verse is telling us is that this is an open action that is an unrestricted diffusion of light, and it will be after the end of all the corrections. In the Torah, this state is called the state of the supernal Garden of Eden. Gan Eden, right? In the meantime, only people that are complete and are righteous, like the soul of Benanyahu ben Yehodaya, and others that have merited, reception of this life from the great coupling or sivuk that is done in Attic, these souls actually, they gather this life for 6,000 years. These souls place the rest, the place of them, to rest, where these souls rest, is called Garden of Eden. So they're in a higher level. Let me put in a graph again. It's easier to understand with the graph. So what we need to understand is that Olam Atzilut, which is also called Shabbat, is also called the Garden of Eden. So these souls are above what we call the Parsa. They're in a state or level that is less egoistic than the 6,000 years of correction. But they gather the lights and all these corrections. This is 6,000 years, and to then reveal it all at once, as we studied before, you know. And there's also a lower Garden of Eden of Earth, which is a state of Vak, and the supernal one, which is Gar. So the supernal one is the three, uh, Hokmah, Bina, and Da'at, and the lower one is Zerampin and Son. Okay? All the souls dwell in this lower Garden of Eden, and only in what we call the Rosh Chodesh or new moons and Shabbat, they ascend to the supernal Garden of Eden. Like I mentioned before, this is a mystery of the ascension of the worlds. The ascension of the world have to do with a Shabbat. You know, this is what's happening in Shabbat as we are doing these prayers. We are ascending together with these words. We're participating and attaining lights of these different levels. And then, as they ascend to the supernal Garden of Eden and then return to their place, during the weekdays, um, there are some people, or special souls, uh, that have this place in the supernal Garden of Eden. They are souls which Rabbi Shimon says, I saw them ascending, but their number were few. And this is should be very familiar for certain people, that if you really look, in this case, see the world around, and you're gonna see there's a lot of people that are interested in Kabbalah, but they're not interested in what Kabbalah actually is all about, which is the attaining of the light of the Creator, the correction of their soul. They're more interested in other stuff. What Kabbalah can do for me instead of what can I do for humanity using the tools that Kabbalah give me. No, they use the tools of Kabbalah in order to help themselves, whether it is for business, to find, their soulmate and things like that. And those are distractions in the path. You in reality, these are things, that will come to you eventually. The Creator has a plan for everybody. It's not that the Creator has abandoned you. You have to fix it. Uh, yes, there's things that you can do, but you can do it not because you want to change, certain things in your life or anything like that. That's not how it works. It's simply that you're doing it in order to connect. For example, in this case, um, we have a lot of people study Kabbalah. Only a few want to teach it, want to learn it, to teach, to share the light and things like that. And only a few want to do certain kind of projects. Like I have friends like in Israel and even here in the United States. They don't only teach it, but they also print Zohar, portions of the Zohar, and they give them for free. That's spreading the light. We have others that they just want to, what we call in Kabbalah we call them consumers. They just want to learn, but don't want to give anything back. And living in the world of social media, they don't even put like or anything like that. They just see the teaching, but they don't even put like or anything like that. That's a way of giving, believe it or not. Putting like in the video, and you're gonna see other ones, that just because they see a teaching that is free, they think it's the teacher must not be that good if he's giving the teachings for free. But then there's another teacher that probably charges, for example, a teaching like this one, like the Zohar, charges, hundreds of dollars. That must be, a good teacher because he's charging, so much. What actually he's doing, he's selling you a product, right? And telling you what you want to hear, While the other teachers, they only depend on your donations and things like that, and believe it or not, there you're gonna find more light than the other one that's creating a product to give you what you want, because they're feeding your egoistic desires and they're not helping you correct. And that's a I won't say it's a problem, it's a challenge that we have in the Kabbalah, in which we're gonna see, a lot of teachers out there, but a lot of teachers are more into how they can feed their egoistic vessels, and by doing that is by feeding the egoistic vessels of other. But this is also a trick, because even those teachers that are doing that, they're spreading the light without knowing it, right? They think, okay, I'm making money out of this, or I'm, whatever. But eventually, all this is gonna lead to the same thing. That one might be, a little bit slower because they're feeding, the egoistic desires of the people, telling them what they want to hear. But still, at the end, everybody's gonna go to the same place, because Kabbalah is it's basically the tool that is gonna lead uh, everybody to the same level, the level of correction of one man, one soul. So what I'm saying is be careful when you see something about Kabbalah. A lot of Kabbalah that is out there is not necessarily authentic. It's mixed with a whole bunch of other stuff. That does not mean that Kabbalah cannot be mixed. The problem with Kabbalah being mixed is that it might confuse people, thinking that certain things are actually what Kabbalists around the world teach, for real. For example, when we talk about the incense, we talk about the incense in a different way than, let's say, the New Age movement talks about incense. They use the incense to clean the space and all that kind of stuff and all that. When we talk about the incense, this is a Kabbalistic teaching. We talk about the 11 spices on that incense that was used in the tabernacle and the temple, and how that 11 spices represent 11 forces that are used in order to correct the forces of Tumah, the forces of impurity. So there are differences on that part, and even though it might sound like some people they just want to like use Kabbalah only because it, it is good in order for me to know. They feed themselves with knowledge. And Kabbalah is not about knowledge. It's not about us studying the book of Zohar and knowing the meanings. And like I see some Kabbalists saying, this is a mystery that was never revealed before. It's written in the Zohar. It's being revealed, but only to those who really get into the book itself. And they come up with these ideas, and in reality, and I'm not saying this, in order to criticize them or anything like that. In reality, is that they're confusing people, and I've been also listening to some people saying that like this is a mystery that was never revealed before and all that, and it's just a trap in order to attract people to see their teachings, and at the end, they don't reveal anything, nothing new, right? Because there's nothing new under the sun. What you're hearing here in riddles in the language of Kabbalah, can be explained in a much more simple way for the layman. But we choose to do it this way for the people that want to go deeper into the Kabbalah, into this system that has only a language of branches, it is called, in order to explain those things that are not, doesn't have form or way to explain them. And then the Zohar comes and gives us these stories that probably never happened, right? But it gives us these stories so we can understand what is happening in the upper realm, and that we can have a sensation of how those realms actually work. So the Zohar only talks about how can we ascend to this Garden of Eden. The Zohar also has some parts that might be misinterpreted, and then you're gonna see people talking about how to read the face of another person, and they think that's Kabbalah, and it's like not really. Oh, but the Zohar talks about that we need to read the faces. The problem with that is, if you read the face of another person, if you think that that's a way to read people and know how they are, you're judging the person. You're using the force of judgment, and most likely, probably 90% of the time, you're gonna be wrong about the character of that person, because a person that has red hair, just because he has a red hair doesn't mean that that person is totally gebura, like it is thought out there about people that have red hair and things like that. Probably that person has red hair, and it's probably her soul belongs to the side of chesed, which is the side of mercy. So we gotta be careful with those things that are being thought out there, and be discern. Let's put it this way: discern, and understand that the Book of Zohar is all about how can we correct ourselves, how can we learn to understand that our connection with the light is the most important thing. That is not about how I have the most business, the most money, my perfect soulmate and things like that. It is beyond that. Those things are important here in the physical reality, but in reality, the Zohar speak about something much more than that. Uses the language of this world in order to explain the spiritual realm, and that's what we need to understand here. And what I'm saying is, this is why we are in what is called a lower garden of Eden, where all the souls reside. But when we are in this higher garden of Eden, all this symbolism, all these things, all these egoistic nature that is manifested in this world disappears. We're not looking anymore for the perfect partner. We're not looking anymore for the perfect business. We're not looking anymore for money or anything like that. Everything disappears at that time, because all we're looking is for that sensation of the light in our vessels, and that perfection that the light will give us. So we will continue with the donkey driver in our next lesson. That lesson will finish finally the donkey driver, and we'll start a new section in the prologue. It's called the 2 points. It's a short section, and then we're gonna enter another section in the prologue of the Zohar, which is called the Night of the Bride. And that's another very important section in the prologue, which reveals a lot of the secrets and let us understand a lot more what the Zohar wants us to understand as we read the Zohar throughout. Like some people do, they read the Zohar or parts of the Zohar according to the weekly portion of the Torah. Okay? So remember, the Zohar is not about knowledge. The Zohar is not about these things, that we even, to give another example, we use the red string, right? The red string actually is not going to do anything for you. Kabbalah is not about the red string. The Kabbalah is not about reading faces. The Kabbalah is not about that. Those things are taught, by some Kabbalists, and but they're not the important thing. These are things that distract people. In fact, the red string, you don't need a red string, to remind you of keeping, your envy in check, right? Or attract envy to your life and things like that. Okay, you don't need that, but we use it as a reminder. It's more like a mental game. It's more, a mental game than anything else. But the Zohar is different. The Zohar is not about mental games. The Zohar is about soul connections with the light. Okay? So I'll leave you with this message, and I'll see you in the next class, the next lesson, in which we're going to finish the donkey driver. I hope you have enjoyed, and shalom.